everybody, I'm Tim Gore, and I'm very happy to welcome you to this program where we're going to have the chance to interact with ceramicist Ruth Reese as she shows us how she goes about creating her pieces. As always, we're being joined by interactive video conference schools across the country. We're looking forward to your questions throughout the program, but don't forget, if you're watching on the web or local television, you can send us your questions via email to live@hec-tv.org. That's live@hec-tv.org. So why don't we go inside the artist studio and meet Ruth. Hey Ruth, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
And I see you're already set up and ready to work, and so we're really glad that you're joining us today. We're going to start by going to some student questions right off the bat. So I want to go first of all to Arcadia High School out in Ohio. Arcadia, what's the question you'd like to ask Ruth Ann to get us started?
When did you know you wanted to be an artist, and as a profession, were your parents supportive?
Thanks, Bria, very much for the questions. So when did you know you wanted to be an artist? What was your parents' support like?
Those are great questions. You know, I was thinking back to maybe when I was like 7 or 8. Is that too early? And I was working on a little drawing, and it had a bunch of fish scales on it. I was kind of obsessively working them. And someone else looked over, and they looked over with a little air of amazement, or they kind of liked it. And you know what? I kind of thought, I really enjoyed doing this, and if other people could enjoy it too, maybe that could come together somehow.
So then did you go through school taking art classes and that kind of cool stuff?
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed taking drawing and painting, especially, you know, in grade school and high school.
Very cool. Thanks, Bria, for the question. Let's go to Durand Middle School in Wisconsin, because Durand's got a question in a similar way. Take it away, Durand.
Who or what inspired you to be a ceramicist?
Very cool. So who or what inspired you to be a ceramicist?
Well, I grew up kind of boating on the Mississippi River, and they call it Mississippi mud here. And so I made a lot of mud pies, and I apparently just enjoyed squishing it and walking barefoot in it, which, you know, is questionable behavior, but I enjoyed it all. So I attribute it to those years.
So the feel of the clay between your fingers has always been something you were attracted to. From a sensory perspective, it was a cool thing to do. Yeah,
you know, it's really primordial. It's everywhere. It's what the earth is made of, and I really like spending time with that material because it just helps me feel more connected, and so I keep working with it.
Very cool. Well, speaking of that material, we're going to get the process started. And don't forget, if you're watching on the web or TV, just email us your questions to live@hec-tv.org. They'll come directly to my phone. I'll weave those into the conversation. We're going to go to other student groups as well that we'll be able to weave into the conversation also. But let's start to talk a little bit about the work you do, because you're creating pieces. Some of them you're building by hand from scratch, and some of them you're using molds. But your pieces, to a large extent, I guess, have a kind of a sea, ocean creatures kind of vibe to them?
It's true. You know, I do have a lot of molds here, but all the molds were definitely made, I made the original. So I don't feel like I'm cheating here.
That's good.
Then we just put the plaster around it, and that way I can make many without necessarily having to spend hours and hours and hours.
Well, start to take us through the process. How would you like to begin in terms of talking about building the individual pieces?
Wow. Well, you know, what I like to do is, I think of it almost like a little bit. I don't know if you guys have started writing papers. Anybody write papers out there?
We do that still.
I kind of decide if I have an overview of a picture or direction I want to head, and then I try to make the parts, and then I try to put the parts together. Okay. So I thought that we might just take a look at a few parts.
Okay.
Part making.
I like it. So parts is parts. Let's start with parts.
Yeah. I'm going to grab a little clay.
Okay.
I do end up doing a lot of octopus pieces, so I thought it might be kind of fun to make a tentacle.
Now, what about sea life creature forms intrigued you or got you going?
Well, you know, I think of the ocean or the sea almost as a metaphor for the subconscious, or, you know, maybe in everyday terms, it's things that are kind of bubbling up. You know, anything new you might be thinking that you may not actually know you're thinking. So I like the sea creatures because they live in that world.
Okay, all right. So now, there's obviously all sorts of different kinds of clay you could use, or the clay could have a different kind of malleability to it, or form or whatever. I mean, Are you a soft clay person, a harder clay person? What does it really matter? These are out of porcelain?
Yeah, so porcelain is, I don't know if any of you guys have used porcelain before, but it's especially creamy, sort of cream cheese-ish. And you know, a lot of sculptors like clay with sand and grog and temper because it kind of helps it hold its shape better. But the advantage of the porcelain actually is that you can get a lot of actually detail. There's not a lot of sand and extra items to kind of block that.
And so that gives you the option to do the texture that you want to do.
Yeah, I find that I can just offer a little bit more kind of intricate detail.
So this piece you're building here, you're forming what's going to become a tentacle?
Right now, this is going to be a tentacle. So I don't know if you guys have ever made handles before. So, you know, I was making handles. I wanted to do something a little extra. So I'm just rolling it out, kind of tapering one end, and then I'm going to stick it in the water. And if you guys have ever pulled handles before, am I getting too wet?
No, you're doing great.
Am I making a mess?
Not yet. You're not making enough mess yet, so we're in good shape. We look forward to getting our bounty towels out later.
Yeah. So you can kind of, it infuses the surface with some extra water. And it allows it to kind of become a little more freeform and flexible.
Oh yeah, it's moving all over the place then.
So, and then you can have like a tentacle form. And then I just like to kind of just prop it up so that it will kind of take that shape and let it dry a little bit. So you were asking, do you like wet clay or dry clay? Well, I like them all.
But putting the syringe underneath it is what's going to enable it to keep that shape as it dries. Very cool.
So, and then I have one that's a little drier. And I thought it would be fun to put a little texture in it.
Okay.
So I have a book at home where I have all, it's like pictures of octopus or octopi. And I also have, you know, birds or cats or tigers or goats or, you know, like whatever animal I'm interested in working on.
I'm going to have you switch this just a little bit, just to see if the camera can pick it up as you actually do that work. We'll see how we can get in close and see.
This tool right here,
that looks great.
Is a sgraffito tool. So it's got a little like loop on the end of it. I don't know if you can see that. Little hole that takes out the clay. And you can kind of do drawing or scratch through the clay. I'm going to go ahead and just soften that a little bit, and then maybe we'll make some suckers.
Okay, cool.
Or yeah, suction cups.
Suction cups that go on the tentacles there? Yes. Now, Durand, I want to go back to you guys because I know you all had a question concerning the work she does and the kind of creatures that she creates. So middle school, Durand, Wisconsin, go right ahead.
How did you come up with your themes?
That's a good question, I think.
Well, you know, sometimes I think animals might have a different kind of language than we do, or a different knowledge. I like the idea of tapping into that. So they may not be able to, like, you know, speak or add. But I kind of have the sneaking suspicion, like you all, if you've had a pet, that they might know things we don't. So it's sort of a way of kind of connecting with that idea. You know, this might be a little bit younger than you, but I still am really fond of the book of Where the Wild Things Are. Where Max,
a little more yeah,
you know, he puts on his wolf suit and, you know, and then all of a sudden he gets to be somebody else. So, you know, just having the human form get to kind of explore, you know, maybe a different psychological, emotional, spiritual state.
That's cool. We've got some email questions that have come in, and the first one asks, do you plan your piece all the way through from beginning to end, or does it kind of grow organically as it happens, or are you thinking, oh, this octopus is going to be like this to start with?
Well, you know, I think that when you make things, it's a little bit of a collaboration between you and the material itself. So you try to find something that the clay wants to do and you want to do, and then when you both are happy, sometimes that's when the piece might turn out.
Jacob wants to know, oh, I think this is a great question, Jacob. Jacob wants to know, do your creatures fill your dreams at night?
You know, I have based different pieces on dreams that I have. I think the way that you dream is vivid, and it's very visual, and so those things can really kind of inform. I had a dream where someone snuck into a basement and stole some notebooks with designs on them, and took them with them. And when they left, they grabbed a blue tarp, and it kind of covered their way on the way out. And so I decided to make that figure. It was something about getting knowledge, I thought.
Oh, interesting. And I can see the suction cups are actually beginning to take shape as we can try for a close-up here of the tentacles as you continue to work. But you see the suction cups actually beginning to take shape. Arcadia, I'm going to come to you guys in just a minute for another question from you. I also want to remind our other video conference schools that I'll come to you guys in a minute too. So after I go to Arcadia, then I'll go up to Magnificat, and then we'll go to our Craig, Alaska connection. So Arcadia, you had a question about some training and education for Ruth, I believe. Go right ahead. What's that question?
What did you do for an education in high school and college and any other education that you might have had?
In high school, we were mainly liberal arts focused. In undergraduate, I have an English degree in something like 18th or 17th century literature. I don't remember anymore.
But did you do a lot of art study in high school and then do more specific art study in college?
Yeah, you know, I really connected to my high school art teacher. And so I think it was partially that relationship, which I still have now, that was really important in having a mentor. So if you can find someone that you connect with, and that, you know, the relationship is, you know, centered on art, I think that's a great moment in time. My undergraduate is in English, so that was my first college degree, and that is a great place to kind of think about metaphor or narrative or story or symbol. You know,
now talk about that a little bit, metaphor, narrative, story, or symbol. You were thinking about that in terms of like what you put into your piece, like is the creation you're making a metaphor for something, or you're trying to tell a story in what you're producing, or what do you mean when you say that?
You know, whether or not like the person actually walks away with the full story, I find it's helpful for me as a maker to have some, you know, outline of who or what I'm making this and why. And so fleshing out the story to myself sometimes I think makes the piece a little richer.
So it's not necessarily that I would pick up the piece and remember and know the story that you're thinking of off the top of my head, but that the story helps you form what you're after.
Yes, like, you know, like sometimes like an actor may research a character, and that will inform like a small decision, you know, and the audience doesn't have to know that full story. But.
Very cool. I like that. Magnificat, let's go to you guys. Do you have a question for Ruth right now? Go right ahead.
Who's your favorite artist and why?
Who's your favorite artist? Oh my goodness, put her on the spot. She's going to love this.
My favorite artist.
The one you can think of first?
I know. You know, I really like Peta Coyne.
Who's that again?
Peta Coyne. So some of her earlier works were giant sort of dirt bundles hung from the ceiling. But they almost suggest like a person or a presence. And so I really was drawn to those. I really like Kate McDowell. I took a workshop with her, and she, you know, go figure, works with white porcelain. And so
you were drawn to that immediately then.
Yeah, I saw her, on a magazine of the New York Times, which is not really where you see a ceramic person, because it's a little bit more broad, I guess. And I was like, I'm taking from her. I'm going to go.
Very cool.
Take a workshop from her.
And the suction cups just keep adding up. And it's amazing how it begins to very much look like an octopus tentacle. Let's go up to Craig, Alaska. Our folks up in the library there in Craig, does anyone want to come in and ask a question for Ruth? Go right ahead.
Hi from Craig, Alaska. It's just me here right now, but and I'm afraid I got kind of distracted, but I heard the word tentacle. So I'm wondering what kind of books do you read? I'm a Lovecraft fan, so you say tentacle and I'm all Cthulhu out.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Oh my goodness, we might be having
I mean,
a transcontinental bonding moment here.
Lovecraft is a guilty pleasure. I have to say that. I really, you know, enjoyed Cthulhu. He's got, you know, some other aspects of his writing that are questionable, but I really enjoyed that. I've read that a few times. You know, I liked Metamorphosis, Kafka. You know, it's kind of a surreal moment when, you know, he gets turned into a giant, I think it's a cockroach.
He does get turned into a giant cockroach. Yes, he does. Well, it's interesting that you would say that because, well, the idea of metamorphosis, but these shapes that you're creating are really, if you've had the chance to see some of the finished pieces that we put up on the website, and you've come to the Craft Alliance website as well, the finished pieces are indeed kind of a combination of creatures, a combination of forms, and maybe it's a human with an octopus tentacle, or it's lions and tigers and bears, oh my, with a sea creature attached to them. Are you interested in that kind of like mix and match? And
Oh yeah, you know, I think that I don't know if it's the chimera has, you know, it's a combination of different animals. You know. It does have a science fiction element, you know. I like Ovid's Metamorphosis. You know, I think Daphne gets turned into a tree to escape, and you know, I just think those are, I don't know, ways to redefine being human.
that's very cool. Part of what we wanted to do today was to give you and everybody else the chance to also see some examples of student work from some of the kids who are joining us. And one of those students is from Arcadia High School. So let's go out to Arcadia now and let you share a little bit of the piece that you worked on, let everybody see it and talk a little bit about creating it. Then Ruth can respond to it and we'll see what dialogue might emerge as we talk about this piece as she continues to work here.
This is my sleeping fox sculpture. I created this with clay. And I kind of found the idea offline, seeing images of foxes, and I really liked the image of a sleeping fox.
Very cool. Ruth, as you look at this, what strikes you? What do you notice immediately?
You know, I really like the way the fox kind of turns into itself. It has a lovely little introverted feeling. It has a nice gesture in terms of the overall shape. There isn't a lot of deep shadows, but that allows you to kind of feel it sort of returning to itself. Oh, and I love the texture on that piece. It's very soft.
And Danielle, I'll just ask you a quick question. How long did it take you to create that piece? And did it end up looking like what you originally envisioned, or were you in the process of having to modify as you went about creating it?
It took me about a week or so. It did turn out how I liked it.
Very cool, very cool. And as we talk about the time, thanks Danielle for sharing very much. I'm getting all sorts of email questions coming to me as we go through the program here that I'll get to in a minute. But she mentions time. Talk a little bit about your process in terms of time.
You know, I think there's something exciting that happens when you build a work fast because you get a lot of the gesture. Things don't necessarily look overworked. I do tend to spend like 40 hours on a piece, and so I don't know how that'll work out in terms of making one in an hour. But you know, it is wonderful if you can capture the gesture, you know, quickly.
Well, we've got some other questions that have come in. Oh, Jacob wants to know now, do you actually make your living as an artist, or is this something you do in addition to?
Oh, I don't know. That's questionable. You know, I teach a lot. I teach at Maryville University. So in a way, that's sort of getting to be a part of the process. You get to be a part of a student's journey. That's a gift in itself. I love teaching. So, but yeah, I do. I have you know, there's a little gallery in town where it shows my work when I get it done.
Very cool. And someone's following up on the conversation that you and our friend in Craig, Alaska had about literature. In terms of that literature influencing you, does the literature at all influence the way you name your pieces, or do you actually name the pieces at all?
Oh, yeah. So that's a good question. Sometimes I find that the name kind of changes over time. You know, you want the name to be like a handle for your piece, but you don't want it to be like overshadow it or cause people to expect too much. So I try to strike a balance.
Okay.
You know.
Very cool. Now, is there anything else you want to show us as we just do this individual hand build, or anything else you wanted to work on? I see the tentacle has many a section cut now. And if we take it a moment and show it, I'll actually pull it here so everybody can see a nice close-up of those section cups at work. Indeed. And is it hard enough now it's going to keep that shape?
Oh,
or?
I think it'll keep that shape.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was fun.
Very cool. Anything else you want to do about hand build, or shall we start to talk about putting it together, so to speak, and how you do the attachment? What's good for you next?
I'm going to just do one more thing of hand build.
Okay, let's go for it.
Might be fun. Oh, let's use a mold.
Okay.
So I'm going to grab some clay and then make a quick slab.
Okay.
And so I don't know if you guys have used a mold before. Actually, I have one made here. Sort of lost it. So kind of roll it out, and then I like to kind of throw it down and then put it in here and ease it into the mold. And so you press and press and press, and then it takes the shape of the piece you're making.
So you're not pouring clay into the mold, you've actually rolled out the clay and you're shaping it as you push it in.
So this is a press mold, and you know, a lot of items can be made with like slip casting, which I think you might be referring to. So I'm going to take this out rather quickly, but this one has dried a little bit, so it's stuck in a little earlier. Shoop, shoop, and I like to put a little handle on them, so they come out rather quickly. A little easier.
Oh no, let's see that so everybody can see. So indeed then, and this is just done because you've pressed it in there and you've got that shape, and then this becomes something that might become part of the piece, might become the base for the piece, might become an adornment, but could work in a number of different ways.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I based that on the back of a crab shell, which is
okay,
kind of fun.
so you made the mold.
Yeah.
You made the mold, and then okay. This is why you're the artist, and Tim is not. Okay, that's good to know. All right, so we've got individual pieces that you either hand built or made from molds, and now we're going to start talking a little bit about the process of putting those pieces togetber into what's going to become the
So actually, this piece is a little bit of a mold too.
Okay.
It's the reverse of this mold. I don't know if that's. And then I put them together so that you get this piece. And I thought it might be kind of fun to just...
Let's hold them together so the camera can pick and we can see what it looked like on the inside as well as what it looks like on the obverse, as a positive and negative, as it were. Oh, wow.
So I try not to give too much information, but if with a press mold, and it can be kind of wet, and then you can continue to manipulate it. I thought it might be kind of fun just to, I don't know.
So now this is good, because we've got a piece that's in the process of being created, so who knows what we're going to end up looking at by the time it's all done. So that's fine. So you're thinking now about adding some other elements to what you've already got started here.
Yeah, so in the mold it didn't have necessarily these pieces coming down, so on that side I put them. I thought it might be kind of fun to make a little, eyepiece or something.
Okay.
I don't know if that would be interesting. So we'll just stick that in there. It's great if you can have like a socket and then a little raised area above and below. Put in just a little, that looks a little scary. I've got to add a lid.
Yes, the big eye now staring at us. It does look a little bit scary, but it'll all change over time. Kind of like Al-like so far. So you're obviously a person who really likes to work with her hands. This is not a pursuit of passion if you're not a person who enjoys working with their hands and getting their hands dirty all the time.
Yeah, I think that it's a little more meticulous than say working on the wheel if you're a thrower. So there's something kind of like fantabulously fast and growing, and this is a little bit more, I don't know.
Very cool. As you continue to build some things here, let's go to some other student groups and see what questions they have. Let's go up to Magnificat first. Magnificat, do you guys have another question for Ruth?
Actually, we don't have a question, but we have a few items that we just wanted to show that some students made.
Oh, how great.
Oh, wonderful. Let's go right ahead and do it then. That's cool.
Got a pot.
That looks surprisingly like a pot, yes. Raise it up. So now, is this your work specifically, the young lady who's showing it to us on camera?
She's not here.
Oh, she's not with us. Okay. Then I won't ask you a question about what I got put together. But that's very cool. Ruth, what do you notice about that piece right there you'd like to share with them?
Oh, wow. I really am enjoying the surface. Are those like Celtic inspired, or I guess that's not fair to ask you since ooh, I like this giraffe too.
But that's one of the first things I thought about as well, that it was a little bit Celtic inspired with that. And here we've got a giraffe. At first, when you guys had that giraffe on the table just sitting there, it looked a little bit like a high-heeled shoe to me from a distance. And and I thought, oh, it's a high-heeled shoe made out of a giraffe kind of thing. But now that I see it coming closer, my vision is a little bit helped by that perspective. This is cool. It's like, is it like a watering? Does it actually have a spout where it would water would come out?
Yeah, in the mouth.
What are the other?
Oh, hello, Giraffe Man. Hi, Jerry Giraffe. How you guys doing there? Ruth, what do you notice? What would you like to say about this? That's very cool.
I think that when something's functional, it gets this extra arena to be played with. It's sort of like hands-on art. It's art. It's the art of everyday life, and I think that it makes everything way more fun.
Very cool. I agree. Those were very, thanks to you, Magnificat, very much for sharing those with us. Let's go back up to Durand Middle School in Wisconsin. Durand, your next question, please.
For each piece, what is your inspiration, and can you explain how you come up with the ideas for this, how you came up with the idea for the specific piece you're working on today?
Oh, the specific piece I'm working on
Like
today.
this piece right now that you're working on here, do you have a different inspiration for each piece, to go back to the beginning of your question? And then like for this one you're working on right here, do you remember where this one might have come from? The idea for this piece might have come from?
You know, I'm kind of thinking about working on these bases. And there's something kind of about a way a base can remove a piece, you know, kind of take it away, elevate it. And so I'm thinking of making some either shy or kind of aloof pieces.
Oh, so and when you say shy or aloof, you mean you want them to look that way, or you want me to perceive them that it's kind of like a creature who's like being shy with me? What does that mean to you when you say a shy or aloof piece?
Well, I think that there's something about like when, you know, just having them on the wall with the tentacles kind of just moving all over the place, they just seem more kind of accessible. And I thought maybe slightly more introverted. The character would be a little bit more introverted. You know, we kind of had an interesting question from someone that asked if my parents supported me. I didn't answer them. Oh,
and they were, I hope?
Well, at first, actually, they said, you know, no, we're not going to pay for school to go to art. But my dad has a wonderful design sense, and always was an amazing photographer, and he really brought art home, literally, in kind of designing the house. And so I kind of felt like I was kind of getting to fulfill it for both of us.
Well, very cool.
You know?
That's a nice story to tell. Thank you. Durand, we'll go back to you guys. Your next question.
Before working with clay, what other kinds of art did you enjoy?
Let's see. Well, you know, my degree is in sculpture, but I pretty much just used dirt. So, you know, I did some adobes. So those are kind of architectural structures where you're applying the, you know, kind of clay dirt. You know, I did a lot of sewing and costumes. I like the idea of just like trying to bring home the presence of someone, you know. So.
Well, that is one of the things I noticed when I looked at your pieces the very first time. To me, they were creatures with a life. They had a sense of animation to them. I don't know if I want to say the word personality or not, but something about them indicated to me that they were telling a story, or they were part of a story, or something that I could in some way relate to, which I thought was cool, especially since the shapes were so unusual.
Oh, yeah. So when I was kind of doing the architecture, I was trying to give the sense of the person who lived there without actually making the person. And maybe in some of this, I'm actually making the kind of strange person.
Okay. Now, you've added some more things here. Anything else you want to mention specifically to the kids as you do this additional work?
You know, I just kind of added some featherage to kind of
That's a technical term, featherage.
Maybe kind of give a sense of owl. And so then we've got crab and owl. You know what might be fun is to add some texture to the back of this guy.
Okay.
So that, let's see, we'll just set him down right here. This will be fine.
Okay.
Okay. And so I made some slip.
And what is slip exactly?
Oh, slip is, it's a clay mixed with water that you refine and maybe pour through a screen. And make it extra delicious.
Oh, extra delicious. Well, yes, it looks a lot like pancake batter to some extent, but we're not going to use it for the same. So you're actually going to use your syringe.
Yeah.
And you're going to use the syringe as the tool to apply this slip.
Yeah, I think that makes it feel, I like using tools because it just makes me feel more important.
Well, you know, it's all about what it is you enjoy. I mean, that's an interesting thing for the kids to understand, is that, you know, different artists obviously have different techniques, and you find techniques that you personally enjoy. Otherwise, why would you spend all the time doing it?
So when I was collecting images about crabs, you know, a lot of them were trying to mimic the sand, and maybe the way that like the water created these almost like miniature dune-ish or kind of barnacle-ish feeling. So I'm just going to take this and put it on there. Almost gives it kind of like warts, you know?
Yeah. It's kind of like decorating a cupcake.
Yes.
With the same kind of syringe thing. And the shape is something that just over time you've developed, I mean, to start with, you basically just said, oh, I kind of like this shape, I'll see what it works out like. And you did a lot of experimentation, trial and error, until you eventually got to things that you just continually remember, I like what this looks like on a piece.
Yeah, you know, I think you just make lots of extra things all the time. And, you know, maybe art is you know, it's like 75% editing at least. So you try all these different things, and a lot of them, you know, you just sort of, you love them while you're doing them, and then you'd let them go, you abandon them.
Right. Would it help if I hold this for you?
Yeah, I need a couple extra octopus arms.
I'll be your Vanna White
Okay.
for this moment in time.
Okay. Bloop, bloop, bloop.
I like it. And Arcadia, we're going to come back to you guys in a minute because I know you had a second art piece that you wanted to share. So as Ruth finishes adding various items to this, let's go back to Arcadia.
Oh.
And what is the second piece you'd like to let Ruth Ann see?
I sculpted a image of a baby dragon coming out of an egg. It's got its wings and kind of horns.
You know,
It has its tail coming out of it too.
I really like the kind of the quietness of the egg with the activity of the dragon. I kind of like the balance of, you know, active spaces and then, you know, a little bit quieter spaces.
I thought you might be intrigued by this because it is, you know, the way it's coming out of the egg and everything. It's, you know, it's kind of a metamorphosis.
I was going to say, it's sort of growing and rebirth and, you know, new life and coming out, changing, a little bit like a phoenix dragon or something.
Ooh. Now, where did your idea come from? Is this something that you just placed in your head and you said, oh, I think I want to make a dragon coming out of an egg? Or go through a little bit of the process that you had to create this piece. Where'd your idea come from?
I was reading the book Aragon, and I made a giant form of a dragon, and then I thought, why not make the dragon coming out of the egg from like the beginning of the story? So that's what I used here.
Very cool, very cool. So literature inspired you as well. That's neat. Thanks so much for sharing that. Anything else, Ruth Ann, you'd like to notice about that?
You know, what's so fun about making things is you kind of get to partake of the drama that you're creating. So, you know, when I get to make that, or she gets to make that, or you know, you get to kind of get to partake of that little drama.
Now, what are you, speaking of making now, I see a whole bunch of, are you making a sponge? What is this that you're creating here?
Right, so it's sort of be a little bit ambiguous, so a little sponge, a little bit of fungus. I kind of
it does kind of look like a mushroom or the underside of a mushroom or fungus.
Morel or something.
Morel.
So I kind of wanted to suggest C, but then maybe also a little bit of decay.
Okay. Decay.
I don't know, I just like mushrooms.
Not necessarily death, just decay. Okay. You've taken this little fungi thing that you created, that's another technical term, fungi thing, and is this becoming like the base of a piece that I'm seeing before me now?
So, you know, I really like looking at, you know, 18th century, 17th century figurines that were majorly out of porcelain. There's a sort of gallantry going on there, and so I like to make pieces that are maybe a little bit ironic if you look at that tradition of the figurine. And so they have these bases that they all live on as if they were just like emerging from.
It's kind of like the Venus emerging from the shell.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like the, I don't remember my artist off the top of my head, if that's Rembrandt or somebody else, but the Venus, Botticelli.
Botticelli.
It's Botticelli's
I was going
Venus.
to say, I think it's Botticelli.
Ooh, my art history teacher is very happy with me right now for remembering that. Oh, Megan has this question. Do you complete drawings before starting anything? Do you draw anything out? And then, of course, she says, if so, do you have any you can share with us, which you may not have right here with you. But do you draw things out to begin with to get an idea?
I really like making drawings, but to me, they're closer to almost working with the content section of making a piece. Clay is really thick, you know, and it doesn't, you know, when I make something, what I feel like works in a drawing, it doesn't necessarily work with the thickness of the clay. And so I do a lot of little maquettes or little models, or I might, you know, just kind of try out a texture several times to some degree before.
Now, Jacob, thank you for your next question as well. I appreciate getting these questions from you. He's really intrigued by ancient ceramics, the beauty of ancient ceramics. I'm sure he's talking Greek, Roman, and some other things as well. Do you at all feel connected to artists from ancient times as you produce work? He's interested in knowing that kind of connection that exists, or Renaissance, or whatever the period might be?
You know, I really like is it the art of the ancient Near East? You know, so they have a lot of images of people, you know, combined with animals almost. And I think of like the Lamassu, this giant monumental gates where it's got like the head of a man and the body of a bull and the wings of, I don't know, some terrible bird. And it's supposed to kind of intimidate you as you walk through.
But no, whether it's the Sphinx, or it's the Minotaur, or it's the, I'm trying to remember all those nice mythological things that another language arts teacher would be happy if I remembered at this moment in time. All of those creatures, you know, that combination of human and animal forms, and it's kind of cool. Anthropomorphic.
Oh, there's a good word.
I haven't used anthropomorphic in a long time, so I thought I'd just stick it in. Now, talk to us about what you're attaching.
This is just a perhaps like a stump, or maybe I'm going to add a few branches to.
Okay.
You know, in these kind of the figurine, there's all these little accents going on the edge of the figurine. It could be like a little cat or a flower, kind of like pawing at whoever is.
Almost a crisis moment.
Yeah, I'm good at those. But so I like the idea of these little accents happening.
Now let's talk a little bit about scale. Do you like working in things that I guess you could hold by hand, so to speak, or even smaller? Do you ever work on a bigger scale?
You know, I do have bigger pieces. I think that, you know, whether people like to admit it or not, you know, in ceramics, a big parameter is the size of the kiln. And so, you know, whether people want to acknowledge that or not, like you know, there are some huge kilns out there. You can also work in parts. You know, there's a question of whether this is like decorative, and what does that mean, and could that be, you know, a good thing or a bad thing? But
yeah, keep working on this as we see it come together, because it is kind of like a tree or something that's coming up to me in some way, shape, or form. And we're going to go back to our student groups for more questions in a minute. We'll start at Arcadia, and then we'll go to some other groups as well. And Arcadia, I'll come to you just in just a minute as you begin to put this. Oh, we're paddling now?
Yeah, so you can, I like to find something a little bit more rigid to maybe complement something that is kind of organic shaped. So using the paddle and hoping it will kind of suggest some rocks, or like the kind of striate of sediment.
Oh, like sedimentary layers in the rock? Like its shell or that kind of thing? Cool.
You know, this is you know, you can push this in and maybe suggest rock again. So I like to.
As you do that, let's go back to Arcadia. Arcadia, do you have a question you'd like to ask Ruth?
Do you make a living being an artist? How much do you sell each sculpture for?
Now we get down to it.
You know, you have to really want to be an artist. That's not for the $1 million, you know. It's because you get to live a life of journey and discovery, and that's not going to happen to everybody. So you have to want it. I think it has to be a little bit of a calling. So that being said, you know, it's, you know, I guess I have some, you know, bigger pieces that are like this, that are more, I guess, you know, 1,500 or 2,000. These are probably, you know, $400 to $600 each. You know.
Now, as you talk about that, because we're going to look at this piece in more detail later, but we'll see it from a distance here. And this is a really cool piece I want to spend some time on when we get there. But you said $400 to $600. When you think of an artist, I mean, obviously you're not getting paid by the hour, you know, you're not necessarily making $10, $50 an hour or $25 an hour, and somebody else isn't dictating to you that as the executive you get to make $75,000 a year.
If only, right?
What goes into your process to determine what's a fair price? How do artists even contemplate doing that?
You know, I think there's something like, what will the market bear? Who are you? What is the platform you've set for yourself? How much are you out there? Are you coveted? I mean, it really is much more of a gray area than, you know, I've logged in this much time.
So there is a sense of demand really driving the price.
Well, I think that, you know, to some degree, art's a little bit like fashion too. I mean, you kind of come into, you're talking about something that's important to the culture, and then you become relevant, and you know, people want a piece of that conversation, and then your price goes up.
Which is, of course, what she's always hoping for.
Yeah.
Okay, now it looks like we're going to add a big piece to what is our base here.
So, you know, I have little molds for the legs, and oh wow, there's a pair of legs over here, so we could just that way. And then I have.
I thought that was like a chicken wing.
I know, it's a little scary, like the way that.
No, we've got to open that package up so people have a sense that Tim's not really going crazy. It does have a tendency to look a little bit like a chicken wing from a distance.
Okay.
What's good for you? The Ziploc bag comes out.
Pardon me. Okay. Right.
See, a little bit like a chicken wing.
So they have, you know, they come in two sections, and then I can put them together. That wasn't supposed to happen, but we can. That goes right there.
But you have to deal with that all the time,
with
right?
Clay,
I mean, it's just a little repair mode.
it,
Okay.
Yes. So, you know, I cast two of those. Just, you know, by cast I mean press, and then so that's where this comes into place. So we were going to go ahead and put this one on.
Now you can begin to really see the fact that there's human characteristics with it, as well as animal or sea creature or just some sort of other creature characteristics with it. Do you need my help in any way to hold anything?
Well, I had a little fin around here. We have to refin it. I've lost my fin.
Oh no.
That's okay.
We're finless.
Okay. We'll just make another one. That'll be fun. So,
is this your fin?
oh, there's my fin.
Looks surprisingly fin-like to me.
So we'll go ahead and put this on, and you know, I brought the other leg, but I think we'll just do this side.
Okay, cool.
You have to do lots of slipping and scoring.
And slipping is the process that we talked about before, and scoring is when you're actually making the marks in it, so to speak. You're scoring it so the slip goes in a little bit, or like adheres better?
Yeah, I just like the idea of kind of roughing up the clay a little bit. You know, it gets wet and bonds better when it's wet, and so you kind of rough up these two areas, and then, you know, it acts like its own glue.
Well, we've got a question that's popped in about glazing and firing and finishing it off, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. But the different kinds of tools, because we've got a question that came in from Mindy. Thanks, Mindy, very much, about the different kinds of tools. You've picked up a lot of different brushes and metal things. I mean, it's all a variety of different surfaces because it gives you a different look, a different kind of edge that you can give a different texture or sculptural tendency to.
Yeah. So one of my favorite tools is the X-Acto knife. Which, you know, if you're in a design class, you can't take this X-Acto knife out to them to keep it clay only. Let's see. This is the Sgraffito tool. I don't know. It's really interesting.
Say that again.
Sgraffito.
As in S-C-R-A-F-I-T-O or something? Sgraffito?
Yes. So it scratches through. We've got a lot of different ribs. So this is great for kind of scraping and smoothing.
Cool.
This one's made of rubber. It's the same rib, but it just compresses slightly differently.
Now, as you continue to attach this and combine, let's begin to talk a little bit about what will happen if this piece were to actually move forward now. So once this piece is all attached together, is it going to go into the kiln and be fired for a certain amount of time, or is it just going to sit around and dry on its own? What's the process that happens next?
Well, you know, you have to have a bisque firing first. So that's when it sits in the kiln for like almost 2 days, I would suspect, depending on how fast you like to fire. If you fire too fast, that's when things start exploding. So you like to fire kind of, you know, slow and even. Hang out under the boiling point for a long time. Bake all that water out. And then you just kind of slowly boost it up. And it goes up to about 1800 degrees, which is super hot. It's glowing red by then. And then let it cool down. And then you can do a fast fire. Zip up and zip down for the glazing.
And degrees?
Okay, so this is a cone 6 body. And the cone 6 clay goes up to about $23.75 or $23.50. This has a little bit, it is a porcelain cone 6, so it's got a high kind of glass content. Now, I make things so thick that you're not really going to hold it up to the light and see any light pouring through, but there's a certain kind of frostiness to the surface. I think that, I'm going to scoot this to the middle, that can, there's a certain frostiness that kind of glints a little bit, and I like that. So.
Well, and as you do that, we can see that as we begin to look at this other piece that I'll very carefully lift and bring into the space, because we can indeed see its glistening nature and a little bit of its color. And Durand Middle School, I know you guys had a question about our color choices, so let's go back up to Wisconsin. What's your question?
How do you decide on the colors you use?
How do you decide?
You know, for you guys who've done clay before, I used to do red earthenware, and I used to use really bright colors. And then there's something kind of soft and ghostly, a little bit, like just a little quieter about the porcelain. And so I thought I could play with the form more without maybe being quite as overwhelming. I kind of want something to be a little bit muted. I don't necessarily want it to be super bright or saturated, but so I use a lot of kind of lighter, almost pastel.
Well, and you can see that here because it's not necessarily gray, but it's got an off-white tendency to it. It's got some grayish, and then there's some definite blues that have also emerged from it that kind of like seem to be like, I don't know, creeping up underneath the surface the way it looks like to me. It's almost like, you know, somebody's vein, how you can see it through their skin sometimes, kind of idea that that's the way the color of blue is coming up through as opposed to just being attached on the top of it.
Well, that's such a great point, because porcelain actually will absorb these stains, and a lot of times glazes just sit on top. So I like the way the clay body actually kind of takes in the sort of pigment or colorant, and that way it doesn't kind of has this feeling of just being a little deeper.
Right.
That one was soda-fired, so...
soda-fired.
Soda-fired.
Which means what?
Oh, so you have a kiln, and it gets pretty hot. This one actually went to cone 10, which is 500 degrees around there. It was a little hotter because this clay will go that hot. But you actually, to get any type of this, it's sort of a little satiny shine, it's not super shiny, you actually throw baking soda into the kiln, like you spray it in while it's at a certain temperature, and it becomes like a cloud and lands on your piece. So it's just, it's fun.
Very cool.
Fun
So
to do.
this has that glaze on it, but this piece, which is sitting over here on this box that I'll very carefully bring over after I very carefully put this piece down, is pre-glaze, right?
Yeah, you know, that one has been to cone 6, so it's vitrified.
Vitrified, I like that word. Vitrified, for those of us who are just regular viewers, like many of us people who are watching on television right now, just regular viewers, not necessarily the students, they're just catching in what's going on in the program here. What is vitrified?
Vitrify means, it's your $1 million word for glass-like.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so a lot of people, sometimes I'll glaze whatever point in time. Sometimes I do put some on in the greenware phase, or kind of like when the clay is kind of wet, or that first firing or the second firing. So yeah, but I thought he might be a little bit too pale. So I was going to go back and maybe do another firing to maybe just give him a hint, just like a little blush.
Well, I love his face. I just love his face. Cat-like, kind of lion-like face in my mind, as well as all the tentacles and everything coming out. We're nearing the end of the program. Time flies when you're having fun. And I just want to go back to each of our groups to see if they've got a final question they'd like to ask as we go through the process of finishing that combination of what you're building there. So I'll go back to Alaska first. Craig, anything else you want to ask before we're going to be able to close in a few minutes?
I think we don't have any questions here in Craig, but boy, where can we find your work?
That's a great question to ask
a question that I would have, because the one you're holding now, I'm in love.
Well, besides going to craftalliance.org, Ruth, you have a website yourself?
Yeah, RuthAnnReeseDesign.com. Ruth Ann Reese was taken. But there, and then you know, PhD also carries some work too.
Oh, very good. RuthAnnReeseDesign.com. Definitely go and look for that. This is a very cool piece. Thanks very much for joining us, Alaska. Let's go to Magnificat High School in Ohio. Magnificat, a final question from you guys?
I have a really hard time like with the evenness of my clay and stuff, and so I was wondering, like, when you're making mugs and stuff, how do you get the top round like the right shape for your mugs, and like how do you whip stuff up so quick?
Oh,
like,
okay.
It takes me like a week to do all my products, and you are so quick.
I understand what you're saying. So she's, you know, you're speeding along very quickly here, creating shapes, and it's taking her a bit longer. Is that a lot of muscle memory? Is that over time it just happens for you, that kind of thing, or is it familiarity, or what?
Well, you know, we did make some pieces ahead of time.
Uh-oh.
So not all these, of course, were made right now. But I do think you do get muscle memory. It is a little bit like playing the piano or calligraphy, or, you know, kind of get this feeling of your brushstroke, or, you know, your hands build a little sensitivity.
Very cool. Now, as you attach this, I'll go to our, we're going to go to Durand to see if they have a final question, and then we'll go to Arcadia. Durand, a quick question?
Do you have a potter's mark?
Well, you know, it's interesting. I do actually have a little functional line. I think it's really fun because when you make pottery, you get to participate in a different community, and it's much faster and lighter, and you have like these sales, and it's just fun. So yeah, I have a fancy R. It's like a very curly Q R.
Very cool. That's a great question to ask about that specifically in terms of for us noticing that if we see it on her works. I'll have to look to see if I can find it anywhere here. Arcadia High School, you guys are going to get the final interactive question of the day. What would you like to ask?
Oh, I'd love to. I have kind of a burning question. I'm so impressed with your sculptures and especially their appendages. And I was wondering, with the challenge of making such elaborate appendages, do you have problems with the weakness of the clay, or the clay being able to handle long stretched out arms without breaking?
Well, you know, a lot of times in my studio, I make a stilt that goes with it, that's then fired with it, because the cone 6 porcelain will completely droop in the firing. Like these long tentacles sometimes will like fall. So if I make the stilt and fire it with it, the clay shrinks at the same rate as the piece.
Very cool. Thanks very much for that question. So Ruth, as we just come toward our conclusion here, the head is just about to be attached.
Yeah. So there's a lot of other parts I wanted to make, but this might be the beginning of the finishing, which will take place in the studio. So.
And just so everybody can see this, we'll do a little up close. But look, you've got an owl head. You've got definitely, I don't know, kind of a shell shape in advancement. It also reminds me kind of a Komodo dragon kind of thing. You know how they have the fan-like thing that comes up behind their head? Reminds me of that. And then it's interesting to me how the body seems small in relationship to the head, or you know, they're in different kind of proportion, which I find intriguing. Do you like that idea of juxtaposition of different sizes that I might expect, different scales or whatever?
You know, when I was kind of planning this one, I was thinking Humpty Dumpty a little bit, and so like almost this head you can't quite hold up. So sometimes I do like almost play with caricature a little bit, with the head being, you know, something that's a little bit out of control.
Very, very, very cool. Well, Ruth, finish whatever you need to do here as you work on this process, but I want to thank you so very, very much for being with us today, because this has personally been absolutely fascinating for me, and I know it's been a really great opportunity for all the student groups who joined us. So thanks to each of our interactive school groups who joined us, and Ruth, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. It's been really fun. Super fun.
Don't forget, it's RuthAnnReeseDesign.com. It's also craftalliance.org, where you can find more information about it. And in fact, you've got actually a gallery in the St. Louis area, so if there's a viewer in the St. Louis area, you've got a Ruth Reese gallery, I think in what, the Cherokee District neighborhood, that people could go, and you've got an opening that's coming up this Friday, if I remember correctly.
It's all true. Yes.
So look her up, go to the gallery, there's some cool works there. Our big thank you, of course, to everybody at Craft Alliance for making this program possible. The archive version will be up in just about a week, and you can once again go inside the artist studio. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.